All right, so tonight I'm going to be showing you how to go through the steps of homework number 1. So if I come here, this was the homework 1, AutoCAD Basics, Applying Drafting 45 Techniques. It's important that you go through all of the instructions and make sure that you know exactly what you need to do for a particular assignment. Some of you had questions about which part you need to draw. Some of you had questions about dimensioning. Some of you had questions regarding other things that were included in the instructions for this assignment. So it's very imperative that you go through each step of the assignment, especially the instructions, to make sure that you are able to complete the assignment in completeness. Okay, so there was one dimension that was missed. That was the dimension between the top circle and the middle circle to locate that vertically. So that's going to be a 3.6 offset. Okay, so first you want to do when you start up a drawing is you want to come in and you want to make your layers. So I've already made my layers that I need for this particular assignment. In future assignments, we'll use a template so you don't have to create your own layers. But for this assignment, it was important for me to know if you could make layers or not. You always want to draw on layers. You want to draw on the appropriate layers depending on the object in which you're drawing. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to create 3 layers per the instructions, and I've created a 4th just to have as a construction line layer. Okay, so the center layer should be red and center 2. The hatch layer should be red and continuous. The object layer should be green and continuous. And I've made a construction line layer of a different color so that I can tell the difference between the various layers. Okay. Sometimes I like to have a construction line layer just to throw things on there, just in case I need that in the future, and I can turn it off whenever I need to turn it off. Okay. So if I'm going to make my construction line layer current, I can just double click that and get out of it. Okay, so I know that it's current because if I hover over my layers, the X line layer is selected. Okay, so what I want to do first here is I want to locate these circles. Okay, so I want to do a construction line. Okay, and I have my ortho on, so I'm just going to have either you could draw up vertically or horizontally. I'm going to draw a line horizontally in 6.8. I'm sorry. I'm just going to place it. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay. Just going to place it. Now I'm going to offset this. So I'm just going to say that this is the line for the lower circle. I'm going to offset this 6.8 up. Okay. So that's going to locate that. Now we're assuming that these are both in the same vertical orientation. So I do a construction line completely vertical, and I'm then going to offset that 6.4 to the right. Okay. To locate this circle, okay, I have this vertical line, but I don't know where it is here. So I need to offset this top line 3.6 down. Offset 3.6. Okay, there we are. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to make our object layer current. We want to make the layer current for which we're going to draw. So we're drawing the object, so we want to be on the object layer. So first I want to do is draw a circle here with a diameter of 2.08. Okay. Then I want to draw another circle, diameter 4.16. Now, typically on a mechanical drawing, as you may have known, is that if you have a completely full circle, it's typically dimensioned as a diameter, and an arc is typically dimensioned as a radius. But for this exercise, just to keep it simple, I just put it as 4.16. Okay, I'm going to do D for diameter. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm going to do center, D for diameter, 4.16. Okay, then I'm going to come down here, snap to there, diameter 1.28. Again, same place, diameter 2.88. Okay. Lastly, we're going to come here, diameter 2.06, I believe, right? 2.08, my bad. Okay. So that gets us this. If we want a construction line for this, or if we want to make that on the center line layer, we can do that. So we can make our layer center current and then come down here, D for diameter 4.8. Okay. Now, sometimes you may not see the line type. Okay. It just depends on the scale that we're using. So if I just change my line type scale to 0.5, 0.1, 0.01, you can see that. Okay, so I was just changing my line type scale. Line type scale allows you to change the line type scale in which it shows on your screen. Okay, it doesn't change any properties other than how you see the line. Okay, all right, so we have the center there. So now what I need to do is draw the last circle. Okay, here. You can hear my dogs in the background probably. That says it's a radius of 3.36. Okay, so I have all the components that I need. Now I can start to assemble this thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn off that because I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to draw the lines in which connect these circles. Okay, so my object layer is current. So I'm going to do my line command. And I'm going to snap to here and do tangent, and snap to here and do tangent. Okay. Again, I'm going to do a line command, and I'm going to snap to here tangent, which means that AutoCAD automatically knows the tangent line. Okay. And I'm going to snap to here tangent. Now to get this curve in here, I'm going to use my circle command and do a tangent radius command within that circle command. So I'm going to choose here, tangent here, and the radius is 3.36. Okay, so then I can use these two circles to then trim out what I don't need. I can use that arc and that line to trim out what I don't need. And I can use that line and that arc to trim out what I don't need. And lastly, this line and this line to trim out what I don't need. Okay, I'm going to save this so I don't lose it. Okay, and I'm going to just put this, I guess, on my desktop, and I'll call it homework 1 review. Okay. Okay, then lastly, what we need to do is we need to put these circles in before we hatch it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make that layer current, which it already is. Okay, I'm going to put a circle at that quadrant. Okay, and the diameter needs to be 0.8. Okay, so I have that there. Now you could mirror it here and then rotate and copy it over there and do that whole sort of thing, or you can use the array command. Okay, so we're going to use the array command and we're going to select what we want to array. We want to do a polar. Okay, so PO. Okay, it says specify the center point of array, so I'm going to select the center point. Okay, and by default 6 objects appear. Okay, but my array command is still open, so I can change the items to 8, hit enter, and the CAD file updates. So once I have it correct, I just hit enter again, and there we are. Now, if you want to make those individual components, then you can just explode, and then they become their individual components. Okay. Now, if we want to just isolate this green object layer, LAYISO, select what you want to isolate, and that allows me just to see what I want to see. Okay. Now I can turn on my hatch layer, do my hatch command, select inside. Okay. I want to choose the hatch pattern. Okay. Maybe we'll change it to 2 since we're going to scale it down a factor of 2. And by default, it's at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to change that to 90, and that'll change it in the opposite direction. Now, you didn't need to put in center marks. You didn't need to put in dimensions. So there you go. Okay. So that is your first component or first part. Okay. So we're going to then do our second part. So if that gave you some trouble, I would suggest that you go through those steps or similar steps, and then try it again and try it again and try it again until you get fast at that. Okay. So we're going to go to the next part. Maybe this was a little more tricky for you. I don't know. Okay. But we're going to go through there. We're going to go through that process right now. Okay. So again, what I want to do is I want to turn on my construction line layer. Okay. I don't need those anymore. Okay. I have my layer, construction layer current. Okay. And I can begin. So if I do a construction line vertical, I can place it anywhere on the screen. Now I want to know that these two circles are 7.2 units apart. Offset 7.2. Okay. I want to do another construction line horizontal anywhere on the screen. Okay. I'm going to be placing this circle with this circle. So the distance between these two circles is 5.76, offset 5.76. There we go, down. Okay. Now I can make my object layer current. Okay. I'm ready to go. So to make things current, I just select what I want to make current, click the make current button, and we're ready to go. So now I'm going to do a circle on here. Diameter 1.6. Okay. Circle. Diameter 0.64. And then I can just copy those two because they're the same on over. Okay. Now this guy is halfway between these two. So it's going to be 3.6 off of one side because 7.2 divided by 2 is 3.6. Okay. And the circle down here is 2.4 from that circle. So I can then offset that 2.4. Okay. And then I can then just copy that down there. Okay. All right. So now that we have these, I can then do a circle here. Radius is 1.6. So I could have done all of these steps before I copied over, but we'll just do it right now. Okay. This one is 1.2. And this one is 1.12. Okay. I can copy that over. And there we are. Okay. So now what we don't need these guys anymore. Delete them or turn them off, whatever you want to do. Okay. Actually, I shouldn't do that yet because I still need to place that rectangle. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and offset it up 0.96. Offset 0.96. Okay. There we are. And this should be in line with these two circles. Okay. So the width of this thing is 1.6 and it's 0.8 on both sides of this line, the symmetry line. Offset 0.8. And then I can just draw my rectangle by snapping to the intersection into the intersection. And now I can turn these guys off. Delete them or turn them off, whatever you want to do. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a circle, tangent, tangent, radius. I'm going to do tangent here, and the radius is 5.92. Okay. Then I can use these two outer circles to trim out what I don't need. Okay. I'm going to take, and again, I deleted things too early. So if I have a construction line, all right, so what we need to do now is we need to offset this line 2.4 in both directions. Offset 2.4. Okay, and that will give us our line if we want to do match properties to what we need now. Okay, don't need that line anymore. So what I'm going to do here, this has a radius of 0.96 and it says 4 times. So that means this one, this one, this one, and this one is 0.96. So now I'm going to do fillet, make sure that this is current, fill it with a radius of 0.96. Choose this circle in there, choose that and that, that and that, that and that. Okay, now we're almost done. So lastly, we're going to do tangent here, do a line command, tangent here, tangent here. So now we're just going to use everything and we're just going to trim out what we don't need. Now, some people like to just select everything and then just trim away. I like to select what I want to use as my trim lines just to make sure I don't trim too much. Okay. So then lastly, I'm going to do these little webs. So then I'm going to do tangent here, tangent here, tangent here, tangent here. Okay. So some of you may, in terms of your O snaps, some of you may come into your drafting settings and select what you want. Okay. Every single time that you need to do an O snap. Okay. A shortcut is essentially if you hold the control key, left or right, it doesn't matter, and you click your right mouse button, you get all of your O snaps in that menu. Okay. So that's the first step of increasing your speed when you do your O snaps. The second step is that if I wanted to do a line, let's say tangent to this, I could do control right click, okay? And I will provide you with the shortcut keys of automatically selecting the O snap that you want. So for this case, G is tangent, okay? So that would allow me to select the tangent. If I wanted to select the endpoint, I would do E, and then that would automatically select the endpoint. If I wanted to do a snap to the center, C for center, then that automatically selects the center. M for midpoint, so forth and so on. So I'll create a list for you and provide that with you shortly, probably next Monday for our training session so that you can increase your speed when you're drafting. Okay. So lastly, what we need to do is we need to hatch this area. So what I need to do is make that hatch layer current. H for hatch, select inside. It remembers what I did previously, and voila, we're done. Okay, so we're done with the monospace stuff. So now what I wanted to show you is how to do the paper space stuff. So we're going to select our layout 1. Layout 1 means layout is paper space, model is model space. Okay, by default, the paper space size is typically 8.5 by 11, but it could be different depending on your settings for your computer. Okay, so what we want to do here is I want to just come off to the side. I'm going to make a rectangle Let's just make zero layer current. Keep it on. Thank you very much. Just make that current. I'm going to make a rectangle, and I'm going to do D for dimensions, and I'm going to do 8.511. So that would be a portrait. And if we copy that over and rotate this, so that would be landscape. Okay, so hopefully you're familiar with portrait and landscape. Portrait means it's vertical. Landscape means that it's horizontal. Okay, so this is the limits of a piece of paper. Okay, so let's just say I offsetted this thing 0.5 inches and 0.5 inches. Okay, so if I want to make a viewport, okay, you can create a viewport just by drawing a box, or you can select an object. Okay, so if I do MV, think of it as make viewport. Okay, and you want to do, okay, O for object, I can select that as my viewport. Okay, so what a viewport is essentially it's a window looking into model space. Okay, so this piece of paper is an 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper. Okay, these parts in model space were drawn to scale. Okay, so depending on the scale that is specified by the assignment, for this example, it's 1:2, so it's half scale. Okay, I'm going to fit this thing half scale on the drawing. Okay, now my scroll bar, there we go. So now we're going to scale this thing 1:2. Now, depending on your CAD, you may not have a 1:2 in here. Okay, you can then just go to custom. We can go to add. We could call it half, whatever you want to call it. Paper units, drawing units, 2. Okay. Okay. So then if we want to do half, it's automatically going to scale it exactly half scale. Now, another way to scale it would be you can just type Z for zoom in a viewport. You can type the scale, so 1/2, okay? And then you type XP. Now, this is an old command from back in the day, like 2000-ish, 1990, late 1990s. This is how we would scale things when that didn't have this on the toolbar. So it's 1/2, which would be our scale, okay? And XP means times paper. So it does the same thing, okay? And it does the same thing because it tells me that that is truly half, okay? So if we want that to stay there, we're good to go. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we lock the viewport by selecting the lock. And so what that means is that now the scale is locked in. And so if I zoom in and out, the whole page scrolls. Okay, so then I can come over to my other one, MV for object, or MV for make viewport, OB for object, select the viewport. Okay, double click inside. When you double click inside, the border becomes bold. So that tells you that you are in model space. If you double click outside of the border, it becomes thin again. That means you're in paper space. Double click in, model space, double click out, paper space. So that's how you know you're in a specific area. So here I want to change that to half. There we are. Get it nice and centered. Once you have it, and you make sure that you didn't scroll in or out, because if you scroll in or out, that's going to change the scale. You can see that. Okay, so we want to come down here, click half, make sure it's kind of centered. Okay, once we have it set, you just click the lock button, and that means you've locked the viewport. Double click out, we're good to go. So these are the two setups. Now, be aware that when you're working in a viewport, you're actually physically touching model space. So if I was to draw another circle out here, okay, I'm physically drawing a circle in model space, because if I go to the model space tab, you can see that circle definitely appeared. If I delete that circle in model space, it deletes the circle in the viewport, okay, because the viewport is just a picture or a window into model space. That's all it's doing, okay. So I think that's what we have thus far, and if you should have any questions, please send me comments. Lastly, what I wanted to do is just show you how to set up a PDF. So let's say we wanted to plot the first one, Control P. There's a bunch of different printers that my computer has on it. The most common to make a PDF is a DWG to PDF. If you have Adobe PDF installed on your computer, you can use that as well. DWG to PDF makes a smaller file typically, okay? So what we want to use here is a 8.5 by 11. Okay, it's always going to say the width first and then the height. So if we're printing the first one, okay, I would hit 8.5 by 11. I like to use expand because it allows you to get all the way up to the edge of the piece of paper. Okay, I want to go then to window. I want to window what I want to plot using my O snaps. Okay, I want to center everything that I've selected. Okay, keep all of that simple. We're going to go to portrait because we wanted a portrait. So if I hit apply and preview, I should have my object. Okay. Now, if you needed to print it to black and white, I'll show you tricks to do that next week. Okay. So if I hit escape, I hit OK. It's going to ask me where to save the PDF. I'm just going to save it on my desktop just to part 1. Okay. Obviously, you would save it according to the parameters set forth in the assignment, but this is just for example of how to print something. So then I'm going to go over here, print, all the same parameters. I'm just going to go to window, select the other one. Okay, landscape, apply, preview. There we are. Plot, part 2, and there we are. Okay, now a trick to have CAD remember where things are being plotted. Okay, you can go into your plot manager. Okay, and if you look up here in the page setup, okay, if I wanted to remember where part 2 is, as long as I don't move the sheet layout, I can go to add. Okay, once you get all of your parameters set up that you want, I can go to add, and I could say that that's part 2. Okay, apply, cancel. So now it's going to remember that part 2 is always located in this location within Paperspace. I can then come over here, window, that, portrait, apply, add, part 1. Okay. Right. So it's going to remember where that is. So if I was doing a more involved drawing and I needed to come, maybe I had 50 sheets in one layout tab, and everything was all set up to print. If I needed to print part 1, I just come in here, select part 1, hit OK. Part 1, 0.2. Okay, so then it does that. And then if I do plot, I can come up here and say part 2. It knows exactly where to go. I hit OK. Part 2.2, done. set up. Okay, ready to go. Okay, so that's how you have CAD memorize where things are located. Now we'll talk about plot style tables next week, but this gives you the basics to plotting a PDF. Okay, you're always going to plot a PDF when you're plotting a PDF in Paperspace 1-to-1. So you don't have to remember all of your custom scales. Your viewport is doing all of your scaling for you. Okay, so that's the benefit of one of the benefits of using Paperspace as in viewports is you're always plotting 1-to-1 because the paper is in inches on the screen, and when it comes out of the printer, it's also in inches. Okay, the dimensions of that piece of paper is in inches. So again, the viewport is doing all of the scaling. So therefore your plot scale is always 1-to-1. Okay, so that concludes our review session, and I will be posting this momentarily.